Hi, I'm Chanel. A parent on the Isle of Man is forming a group to put more pressure on government to assist children with dyslexia or literacy difficulties. Take a listen to the full interview that I did with Julia Bell and MLC Dawn Kinnish.
My name's Julia Bell and I am here as a parent representing parents.
Dawn Kinnish, MLC.
So, as she mentioned, you're here to talk about a cause that's close to your heart. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, so I'm a parent, I'm a mother, and I have 2 children, and one of my children has a formal diagnosis of dyslexia. She was diagnosed with it when she was about 8 years old. She's now 12, and I had a lot of difficulty trying to kind of gain awareness that she has literacy difficulties and difficulty in her being identified as having dyslexia. So I took her to the UK and I funded a formal diagnosis of dyslexia, and to get that report, to be able to present that report to schools in order to try and help me to gain the interventions and resources that I thought that report might help advocate for.
Right, and this was back in 2019, 2020?
Yeah, I think it was 2019, just before the first lockdown.
Right, and then in 2020 you approached Tynwald Hill. You had a petition, and it had to do with with schools, and schools helping or supporting kids with dyslexia or kids that were having difficulties with literacy.
Yes, that's right. The aim of the petition was to help better identify and meet the needs of children with dyslexia or at risk of dyslexia. And I think that's really key because the vast majority of children haven't got that diagnosis. And they will present in schools typically with literacy difficulties, although we know that dyslexia extends beyond literacy difficulties, but that would be the most obvious presentation that would present in schools.
Right, now 2020, it's 2024. I understand your petition was picked up back then, but over the years, what's happened?
So it was potentially could have been picked up by Tim Baker. He was willing to pick up that petition, and I had support from other politicians at that time too. And I was put in quite a privileged position because either Tim Baker said he would pick it up on my behalf, or alternatively, DESC, the Department of Education, Sport and Culture, would pick it up. And Tim discussed with me the advantages and disadvantages of each option, and it was suggested that it might be the better option if DESC picked it up, because it would be seen that I'd be working with the department. And of course I want to work with politicians in harmony, and I trust their opinions will be in the public's best interest. And so I decided to go with that latter option. So I asked for DESC to pick it up instead, and that's what they did.
You wanted it to go to DESC then?
Yes, so DESC picked it up. Dr. Allenton at the time was the Minister of Education. He worked wonderfully with me. I was really, really impressed with his level of engagement, and I can only thank him for the work that he did. At that time, he arranged for a public consultation to designed for parents, and I think there was one that was designed for teachers as well, where they made a survey and they were able to elicit really quite good, rich qualitative data and quantitative data about the needs for this population group. And the key findings did reveal that the concerns that I had raised initially were credible, really, and consistent with what the literature says too. So it wasn't a surprise from that perspective. It was expected, and so from there they made some recommendations, and that's where we're up to. It's about trying to identify what recommendations have been implemented, and are they in place, and what has improved since that time. About 4 years has passed, and I'm not really sure what is happening. So I think that's where we're up to now.
No, I understand. So definitely, as you say, 4 years have passed. You need some sort of answers. You need to know what's happening. Have you tried to approach anyone?
Yes, I have had maybe a handful, maybe 3, maybe potentially 4 meetings with a member of staff who's representing desk, who works for the department, and I've been given verbal updates, but I haven't had anything in writing as such, and I still leave those meetings not really clear on where we're at and where we're heading. And so I approached Sarah Maltby, and Sarah Maltby has given me permission to be able to kind of share her involvement so far. And I thought Sarah would be really key because she used to work in schools for this type of population group, and she's now obviously an MHK. And Sarah was, really quite welcoming of me emailing her, and said that she would write to the Department of Education, Sports and Culture to get a written response to see where they are at with it. And also, of course, I've got Dawn Kinnish beside me, who is also supporting me, which I'm so thankful for both Sarah and Dawn for their support.
Now, Dawn, you are here. You have been very supportive of Julia over the years. What made you come out today to also discuss it, and what are some of your concerns around this?
So, yes, you're right. I have historically supported Julia. So in my previous role as the Government Equality Advisor and having the expertise around the Equality Act, Julia and a number of other parents independently would approach and try to understand how the Equality Act could help them in bringing about change in education. So obviously we've had the lockdown and things have disrupted the flow of the direction of travel. And then, as Julia just explained, she got in touch with Sarah, and that's linked into me. And from my perspective, I can see over the years that there are so many parents out there all fighting their own independent cause. So I can see that there is this opportunity for everybody to come together with a unified voice to fight for the changes that they're looking for, instead of having those independent battles, not supporting each other. So that's where I come in, really. I just wanted to try and lend a little bit of political support to help with the engagement process between the parents and between government departments.
Now, Julia, as a parent who, you're going through this with your children, you've addressed it so many years ago. Now, years later, you haven't heard anything. How does it make you feel as a parent, not as a petitioner, but as a mom?
It's really quite frustrating. I work full time. Any parent, it's a difficult task in its own right. And then, throw on top a full-time job and a child with additional needs, on top of, schools that have barriers that make it really difficult to support children. It can be really time-consuming and really quite frustrating and hard work.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're now looking to form a pressure group, correct?
Well, essentially, yes, I guess that's what it is. It is a pressure group. However, I think it's really important to change the language on that, because we want to be working with the Department of Education, Sports and Culture, and we want to be working with teachers. I think it's really, the emphasis has to be on supporting the department and supporting teachers, because I am a nurse, so I kind of understand the similar pressures that they would have, even though it's a completely different role. That they probably have too large classroom sizes. They probably have a lot of paperwork to do. They probably don't have a lot of time to do CPD or opportunities to do CPD with special educational needs. And so I really do believe that teachers want to render support for these children, and in fact I can see that when I have emailed the schools. I can see that they are trying to help me and they are trying to help my daughter, but for whatever reason there are barriers in place preventing them from adequately meeting her needs and other children. So we want to have real empathy for the workforce and for teachers, to listen to their concerns, to listen to what the barriers are, to help overcome those barriers, and to help everyone, really. What I don't want to do is moan and complain, because that doesn't change anything. We want to identify what is the problem and how can we overcome those problems. So that was why I decided, through Dawn's encouragement to create an advocacy group. I think, we have a Facebook page called Dyslexia Advisory and Advocacy Group. And the purpose of that is for like-minded people to come together in a unison to work together to champion neurodiversity and to champion dyslexia in particular, and to work with the teachers and to work with the schools to find out what can be done to improve the provision, identification and support for children with dyslexia or literacy difficulties.
Right. Now, Dawn, when Julia did reach out to you and say, well, I'm not sure if you guys have been chatting over the years every few months or if Julia reached out recently, but, to know that it's gone on for so long, what goes through your mind?
Well, it's always frustrating because, I can speak as a parent myself, trying to battle for the best for your child is exhausting and time consuming. And I think with dyslexia, there are so many adjustments that can be made and can be made with relative ease, but it's identifying that need in the first place. I do accept work has been undertaken. The Literacy for All consultation that was started in 2021, the objectives and the outcomes have been published, and from that, in just I think October last year, the now former minister had said that 8 schools have volunteered in a process for the draft English, I think it's called the English Core Curriculum Framework, which it was stated embeds some of those recommendations from that consultation. I think what is frustrating is we don't know what that framework is. So I think it would be fair to publish that framework. It would be useful to know which schools have volunteered in this process. We're assured that there's going to be an academic review at the end of this year to work out what's worked well with that. So I think following from Julia's initial pressure, that consultation has definitely flowed from that pressure. But I think the important thing is to recognise there's still a lot of parents out there who feel like they're just floundering around, not knowing which direction to go, what is happening, what should we do, where should we go. And so I think if they come together in that unified voice, continue with the pressure to make sure that there are some positive outcomes. And, let's review what happens at the end of this academic review. But I think, the important message is invite as many parents, get involved, look at the Facebook page, come together, there'll be meetings organised. Come and share your experiences, show support for each other, work out what you want to get across to the department, how do you want to engage, what's your message, invite the teachers, listen to what the teachers are saying, what are they finding difficult in the classroom. I've qualified as a teacher myself. I think you get a very short moment in time of learning what inclusive practice is. But then if you've got a class size of 30 students, how can you be inclusive across all of those different needs? So, let's understand it from a two-way process. What are the challenges for those teachers in the classroom, and how can we try and put pressure on to improve that for them as well?
Right. From your side, as a political member, what is there anything that you can do from your side to kind of spearhead or take this on?
Well, I'm not a political member for the Department for Education, Sport and Culture. I sit in the Department of Infrastructure. I do chair the accessibility group within the Department for Infrastructure. It's a slightly different objective, but I think I delivered a talk last week to people, anybody who wanted to come at the Henry Bloom Noble Library around neurodiversity. I've got a real passion for change. I'm a parent. I've got 4 children. One's been through the education system with challenges, 3 still in the education system. So, I come at this from using lots of different lens, but it's about supporting parents, not necessarily my political membership, but just utilising some of the skills and experience and knowledge that I've got so that people can access in the system and they don't feel like there's a battle getting into the system.
Julia, I think my last question would be, once we put this out there and once you start, once we put this out there, more parents are going to learn about your group. They're going to join your group. And I'm sure there'll be more calls to see more being done. How optimistic are you?
Well, I know that there is a real need for this advocacy group. So the need is there, so the people will be there. So I am a really passionate person, and if I say I'm going to do something, then I do it at full hog and I keep going until I get somewhere. Actually, I have my dad to thank for that. He told me once that I keep going long before others give up. I'm not sure if I've said that quite right, but basically, it's always been drummed into me that I persevere. And, if you keep persevering, one day you'll achieve it. So you might get 20 knockbacks, but you only need one opportunity for someone to listen. So I have full optimistic from previous lived experience of life that, if you're passionate enough and you want something enough, then you keep going. And as long as you present yourself in a really positive, friendly, professional manner, then you're going to build momentum, and that I will become us. That's what needs to happen. We need to form a group so that I am no longer saying I am creating an advocacy group. We will become members, and we'll become equal members, and we'll be a team, and we'll work together as in unison. So that's my next goal, is to change I to us or we.
Oh, that sounds absolutely amazing. I'm going to leave it at that. Is there anything you guys would like to add or say, anything that I didn't mention or ask that you guys would like to pick up on?
It's just to make sure that, if there are any listeners out there, that could be teachers, it could be parents, it could be people who just champion neurodiversity or inclusivity, then to make sure, to get in contact with us. My name is Julia Bell, but on my Facebook page it will be Julia Ferner, which is my maiden name, and the advocacy group is called the Dyslexia Advisory and Advocacy Group, and we have a Facebook page, so please get in touch. You'd be more than welcome.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Dawn, do you want to add anything?
I think just listening to you, just trying to measure outcomes really, and what is positive, what's a positive outcome. And I think for me, and this is what I tried to advocate in the talk that I did last week, is trying to recognise the strengths of people with dyslexia. So we try and deliver education very, very much in a standardised format. But it's about, I always say dyslexia is a superpower, and it's about allowing those individuals to recognise they have a superpower, and recognising actually they can do some things a lot better than somebody without that particular difference. So I think the measure of success will be seeing the development of those individuals achieving qualifications, entering into higher education, and being creative, being entrepreneurial. And so I think it can be measured. It's how we measure that I think would be difficult. But I think that's the kind of engagement we need to do, and make some positive progress.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Little Manx Radio newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.